So the nationalism versus patriotism debate gets to some of the aspects of tribalism that we've talked about, because there is, I think it's fair to say, good tribalism is in the tribalism of ideas, and then there is bad tribalism as in the tribalism of race or the tribalism of class, things that you can't change about yourself that you are born into. This would be bad tribalism. And tribalism of ideas, where you are part of a group because you identify as part of this group, this would be a tribalism that is less likely to be a problem. Recently, I read a book by, it's about going to come out in September actually, by Yoram Hazony over at the Herzl Institute. And he's a very big proponent of nationalism. And the reason that he's a proponent of nationalism and not just patriotism is he says that there are these set of customs and histories that play into the creation of the tribe, and to simply kind of intellectualize tribalism to, well, I agree with you on this list of propositions, therefore we are now part of the same tribe, ignores the fact that people have a natural inclination to identify with people who have a similar history, a similar culture, a similar language. What do you make of that argument? Is there any way to bridge that particular gap?
So my standard analogy about all this is that, every poison is determined by the dose, right? And so nationalism is a little bit like salt. A pinch brings the meal together. It combines all the flavors well. It brings out the flavors. It really sells the dish. A little too much, it ruins the dish. Way too much, it's literally toxic. And so I'm with Roger Scruton. I haven't read this. I don't have the connections you do, so I haven't gotten the bootleg copy of this book yet. But I have absolutely no problem with the arguments from people like my colleague Rich Lowry or from Roger Scruton that a little nationalism is essential. You need some sort of sense of social solidarity and cultural affiliation that binds you together. My problem is that if you listen to Reihan Salam or Rich, this idea of a politics of national unity, to me, is much more problematic, because when you say that the highest ideal is not patriotism, which is basically a creedal idea, right? And there's a certain set of propositions that we agree on, but is instead this sort of far more mystic idea. I mean, Reihan and Rich and Yoram are probably, I would think, in fairness, not ethno-nationalists, right? They're not saying that only one ethnicity, or true Americans or true Israelis or any of that kind of stuff, right? But nationalism becomes very difficult to define, particularly in a multi-ethnic society where there isn't an enormous amount of consensus around customs. And it turns out that the consensus is around the creedal stuff, not the weird cultural stuff. And so manufacturing this sort of this concept of nationalism, I think, very quickly becomes exclusionary to a lot of people. It will certainly be seen as exclusionary by a lot of people. But what concerns me more is getting back to this microcosm versus macrocosm stuff. The government in Washington, or the central government, is the only institution that has any claim of speaking for the whole nation. And so almost invariably, when political parties who have control of government take up the mantle of nationalism, it becomes either socialism or some other form of statism. And it's weird, there's this vestigial thing from Marxism that still teaches people that socialism and nationalism are opposites, which is a fight that the Trotskyites lost in the Soviet Union in about 1926. They're not opposites. They're far more often the same thing. Read a speech by Fidel Castro, read a speech by Hugo Chavez, and replace every instance of the word socialist with nationalist, and every instance of the word nationalism with socialism. It doesn't change the meaning of any of the sentences. When you nationalize an industry, you're socializing an industry. Nationalized healthcare is socialized medicine. So part of my problem with nationalism is that if you want to put teeth on the bones, that's not right. If you want to put flesh on the bones, that's the cold medicine kicking in. If you want to put flesh on the bones on a nationalist program, the only way to do it is by having some sort of large federal government endeavor. So that's part of my problem with it.